and they get an award, and they check that out to see. I think we have only 4 students who have not leveled up. And you can see that
Those
that
were
was
the 4
where...
that you showed us.
Exactly.
You have how many in your class?
25.
25.
Well, 24 now. 24. Yeah. And there are 2 sections.
Are you seeing a change in their other grades or their other work and other classes?
We'll find out. We'll have PRIs coming up here this spring, which will see how much transference we're going to see from this to the basic reading inventory. Yeah, it'll be a good cross-section match.
And what I'm doing right now is, on those days that we go back to the classroom, I have them do a vocabulary lesson. One of those days, I have them read a story and take a quiz over it on the other day. And it's a matter of, I'm going to take a look and see if they are doing it off of the program as well as they are doing it on. That will be where I'll see it, at least with the literature.
A couple of comments. One would be that you are underplaying your involvement and your support for the students. And my comment would be that much of their willingness to work at this comes not only because they want to be better, but their relationship with you. Okay? And I would say that she has gotten some students to participate and fully participate at a level that might not have always happened in other places. So publicly, I'd like to say to you, Mr. Litter and I both recognize that it's a lot to do with your relationship with the kids as well. Now, it doesn't take away from the program, but that says that there's kind of this balance of a couple of things that it has to happen. Because it might be that not just everyone could have 9th graders be motivated to earn certificates. Okay? And you've used that as some incentive, and they bought into that, but you're very supportive of them, and you're especially congratulatory of them and positive about the gains that they do make. And that's a big piece of it as well. So partly what we can say to the company that's piloting this in some schools is the software is a big piece of this, but it's equally important to be considering who that person is. You have to have a really, really motivated student that could just do this alone and be motivated to keep at it. Like you made the comment and made me think about how you work with the kids, your comment about the student who needed you to explain to them why you go back to the instructional level to back up where it's a little easier and then, hit it hard to go forward. But to Cigna's credit, there's some kids in there who have had a hard time with school and not always, motivation was not always their strength, but they're really willing to work for you. And I think that's a tribute to you and your relationship with them. And they're trusting you to take some risks. So.
She's always scored high on the teacher list for all the kids. What are we going to do now that you retire?
See, that's what I was just thinking. Are we going to ask her to stay for next year?
But I will say that it's interesting. There was one day that I was at a meeting. It was the last STED meeting that we had. And I had not said to the substitute to take this down to the room with them. And the kids, when I came out of that meeting, were just coming at me. Oh, Miss Burkhofer, I got an 80, but he didn't have the red book. So, I mean, it was just like I came out on that freshman hall, and I thought I didn't get 6 feet out of that room, and they were, I got such and such. So they're excited.
So what would your recommendation be for the school for this program? Yeah, well, I tried that too, so I'm not going to stay.
Yeah, I would highly recommend working with it and keeping the program because I think it does motivate the kids. They can see their growth, and it's from one week right into the next. So when I'm showing you this as a whole class, I could show this to you for individuals also and let you see exactly where their growth is. And I mean, they're following it on their own. After they get a guided reading done in a class period, they go back into that report to see what it did to their line score and what's happening. How far they are away from leveling up and getting that next certificate. And I have them posted all along my wall, as I said to Barb one day when she looked in. I said, the wall's covered, and I said to Kevin, too, the fire marshal's been here. So, but they're on display. And I mean, other kids are coming in and saying, well, we never got those. What are those for? So they're asking about it.
I think one of the things that technology can do, and it doesn't mean that teachers aren't able to do it, but technology can differentiate the instruction. so that every one of us here could have individual programs. And no matter what segment it is, a classroom teacher, that piece of it would be extremely difficult to do. Where this way, all the data that she's given through the software system lets her actually help direct the kids. That's much different than it is when you stand before the students to try to instruct. Now, even if she wanted to narrow it down and group kids in 3s or 4s whose reading was more alike, it still is not individualized. And what I'm saying is not taking away from teacher instruction, because that won't work very well without a caring teacher attached to it as well. But one of the strengths of technology, and if you really think about one-on-one computing, part of the issue isn't just that they carry their laptop all day with them, but the instruction is individualized. There have been some quotes on the radio today. Scott McCloud has been talking a little bit about what one-on-one technology can do for kids on a high end, low end, middle, wherever, and it has to do with that. It tells me, it gives me what I need, wherever I'm at in that particular instruction. And so probably what we ought to be thinking about is not only our struggling kids, but what about our kids that are more gifted that need to be able to go on in some places as well. And there will be times when technology can do something that a teacher can't. And this might be the perfect example where it's got to have a human, but it also can do things that would be almost impossible for you to pull off.
I could not identify every single area that these kids need help in. I mean, it would be impossible. Even giving them daily work and correcting it, I would not be able to identify the percentages without a horrible, horrible amount of paperwork. This just automatically sends it back to me by the end of the day.
And we're in the pilot program for just this year, or?
And we can have it, I think, for another year.
I think they've renewed it for next year.
Next year, and then I was on a webinar this last week where you can apply for a grant through Prairie Lakes AEA, and they'll pay. It's basically a matching fund. We pay half, and the grant would pay half too. Now, what that costs is they haven't specified yet.
It's $600 a seat. That was released today. $600 a seat, and a private company is actually picking up the grant.
Yeah, the Morgan. I think it's called Morgan Foundation. I believe it was called.
Has looked at it and said, you know what, this has promise. And so because Kevin and Cigna participated this year, another year without any fee, and then the third year, the fee would be $300 per site. And one of the things we've talked about is if we buy 10 seats, let's say, those are available to us 24/7, 365 days a year. So how do we take the 10 seats and use them in more than one place? So first period, nobody else could use the 10 seats but the 10 kids that you might have. But the whole rest of the day, the other 23 hours and 15 minutes that they weren't in first period, other kids could be using those 10 seats. And it might be third graders, or it might be 10th graders, or it might be sixth graders. So our issue was, so what's it really do, and will it make some sort of difference, and is it instructional, not intervention? And it is instructional. But when you think about it, these kids are just reading for the first time. They're reading, not for the first time, but reading more. Just the sheer quantity of reading that they're doing is much of the difference that this makes, along with the guided practice. So there's going to be some options for us to look. Right now you have, what's your biggest class?
15. And we have run into some problems because it is a very high-tech program. So that if you have other high-tech programs going on at the same time, we've had to gradually log in. They can't all go in and log in at the same time. So we had some real issues at the beginning.
Well, one of our classes is opposite yearbook. And yearbook is all online. They're editing photos online all the time, which is huge. This program is also huge, so we had to find the right sequence of events that happen so that all those kids can get on at the same time. And that happens everywhere. It's just rationing out your bandwidth so everyone can get on.
And we did work it out. I mean, I think we've got it running pretty smoothly that way now.
I think the first probably week, maybe 2 weeks.
Yeah, just figuring out why. And
Megan would come out of the classroom as a ghost and shaking her head at me, and
figured out why.
I'm not going back in there.
but part of it was resilience, and also kids understanding, because Megan was very honest saying we're just working through this together, we're learning about this together, and kids bought into that.